Welcome to Mama's Planted, the podcast where we dig deep, get rooted in Christ, and grow together through all seasons of motherhood. I'm Vanessa, your host, and I'm so excited you're here. Whether you're a new mom, expecting, or caring for little ones, this is your safe space to laugh, cry, and thrive. Each episode will dive into the challenges and joys of raising tiny humans. So grab your coffee, throw on your mom bun, and let's walk this journey together with grace, faith, and a whole lot of fun. Well, my name is Vanessa, and I am a licensed pastor with the Assemblies of God. I've been serving in ministry for a very long time, and I am so excited to bring this podcast to you. I do have a guest with me today. She is not only family, but has been a friend for a very long time. And she is the high school pastor here at Faith Assembly of God in Orlando, Florida. She's been in ministry for well over 10 years, so she is very seasoned in what she does. She's also a boy mom to 3. I'm a boy mom to 2. Yep. So we have a lot to talk about.
I know nothing of raising girls.
Nothing at all. So we are so excited to be here, though. So today with me, I have Pastor Kaimana Gonzalez.
Hello. It's me. Hi, I'm here.
I'm so excited that you're here today. So
I'm psyched.
Today we're going to be talking about mom guilt.
Yes.
That says it all.
We know it well.
But before we get into it, I do want to ask you a fun question.
Tell me.
Okay. So if you could have any superpower as a mom, what would it be and why?
Oh, any of them would be great. I would take any kind of superpower. But probably like just, I don't even know if it's a power. I just really want a personal assistant. So a super ability to create helpers would be great because I hate just all chores. Like, you know, the whole like the dishes will wait, the food is fine, whatever. Yes. I'm very about that. Yeah. Like I'm very about the dishes will wait, but then the dishes aren't done. So I would say that like, I really like to just, I guess my mom was like that, like have fun, let's go do stuff. And the idea of like, the housework, the cooking, the scheduling, the doctor's appointments. Yeah. I'm like, let's not do this. So if I could find some super way to make all of that very short, I'd be perfect.
Like little elves.
Perfect. Yes.
To like come in.
If I could have some elves on shelves, if they could help me, things would be better.
I love that. Mine is actually pretty similar to yours. So I feel like for my superpower, I would want to be able to multiply myself.
Yes. So
one of me could be with my toddler and then the other one could be with my newborn. Yes. And then I could also be cleaning the house.
Yes.
Running the appointments. Mm-hmm. It's just a thing that like we need as moms.
So I want an assistant. You want to be your own assistant. You're like, I'll do all the work.
Yeah. We're on the same track. We're just taking different paths to get there.
Yes.
Hey, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all the same. That's why.
Yeah. Well, before this recording, we were actually talking about just like funny stories with our kids, and something that I wanted just the listeners to hear is about your most recent trip. Yeah, which one? It's about your most recent trip to Michigan. Yes. You guys had a family vacation.
Oh, it was definitely a family trip. I don't know if it could be called a vacation, but yeah. So my grandparents were celebrating their 60th anniversary. And so there's no way to not go celebrate that with them. But they live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So the furthest place you could go to celebrate. And so we have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a not yet 1-year-old, not even close. Wait, is he 1? How old is he? He's 1. Actually, he was close and now is close. And now he's on his way to 2. Wow. So yeah, we had, just all the strategy. Yeah. How are we going to fly there? We had to fly there. Then we had to drive 8 hours. It was a whole thing, the whole week. We were destroyed. You know, we were trying our best to not just be grumpy, but also make memories and look how fun this stuff is. So then once we're on our way back, I mean, we're talking 2 plane rides, total of probably about 20 hours of driving just to get to the destination. Yeah. The sun doesn't set up there till like 10 p.m. So we were like, they're not sleeping until the sun goes down. We know it's not going to happen. So, I mean, we had activities from sunrise to sundown with them. It was crazy. Like it was like marathons every day. So after all of it, we're like, oh, guys, like, what was your favorite part of the trip? And they literally said the airplane. The airplane ride.
And you're like, nothing else? Just the airplane?
Right. I was like, so we could have just taken a trip to Atlanta.
Right. Anywhere else.
And back. Yeah. We could have just done a flight simulator. We would have paid for it. Like, are you serious? And then even more so, my mom stayed up in Michigan because she does for a couple months every year. And I was like, you know, what are you looking forward to? Or what was your favorite thing with grandma? Because they knew that was the last time they were going to see grandma for a couple months. And they said watching YouTube Kids on her phone. And
which is like a typical Tuesday.
Oh yeah.
With them.
But like they are 1,000% sold out fans of grandma. Like she is their ultimate favorite person, which I get. She's mine too.
Yeah.
But I was like, not like when she went to the beach with you, not when she played with you,
right.
not when like she wrestled. Watching YouTube Kids on her phone. Like me and Gio were just horrified.
Oh my goodness.
That's how grateful kids are.
Yeah.
That's why it's encouraging to be a mom.
I just think that story is hilarious because as parents, we go through so much like work and effort to be like, I want to provide you with the best childhood and the best family vacation. And then they're like, the plane ride.
Yep.
And
you're
like,
even
but we
told,
did so much, bud.
You're told like, this is what kids want.
Yeah.
You should have activities for them every day of their life. You should never not talk to them until they go to sleep, which should be at this time, at this place, you know, whatever. And so, yeah, to be like, wow, we did it.
Yeah.
We did it. We did the activities. And they're like, oh, just a plane ride. And I was like, awesome. Even on the plane ride too.
Right.
Wasn't great.
Right.
You know, like there was complaints on the plane. So the fact that was the most fun part, I was like, okay.
Great.
More
let's do this again next year, guys. I think as they get older, they'll like remember different things about it.
I would hope so.
If not, the plane ride. Yeah,
I mean, Nate Bargatze does this like stand up. One of his like old jokes he does is about like he only has he has one kid, one daughter, and so I think when she was younger, people would kind of say the opposite of what we're talking about, which is like, you shouldn't take her to do fun stuff. She's not gonna remember. So his whole joke is like, do I just lock her in a room and be like, did you remember yesterday? No, okay, then I'll wait. Which you really can't with kids, like especially when you have multiple kids. Yeah, our oldest one probably will remember, our other ones won't. Right, but we can't just In my mind, I would be like, yes, let's all just stay home forever until you guys are 15. Yeah, and can appreciate this, which teenagers probably wouldn't also. Yeah. So yeah, you can't wait, but it is, you gotta laugh. Yeah. Or you'll cry.
I know. Dom and I took our toddler to Disney, to Animal Kingdom recently. And we're like, it's going to be the best. He's going to have so much fun. But it was like brutally hot.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
That day. I think he was just kind of over it at a certain point, but was like doing the best he could for us. Yeah. Because he like sees, I think he just like wants to see our reaction. And
they can sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So he can't like, he's not like fully talking yet, right? Because he's like 20 months old at this point. But I think we were like, we'll take him to the petting zoo and he'll have like so much fun and he'll just like light up. And I think the whole time he was just like, yeah, I don't want you to put me down. I just like want to be held. Like,
these are strange creatures. I don't want to touch them.
Yeah. But then we see like other toddlers who are like walking around and they're just loving it. And they're like trying to go underneath and actually like hang out with the animals. And he's just like,
let's go.
I just like want to be with you guys, which is very sweet. But then we're like, we could just do this at home.
Yeah, we're like, oh, we could have just watched a video of animals and not been sweating and probably spent $1 million on food and parking and all that.
But it's okay because I feel like half the experience is really for us to like remember with them.
Yeah, I do love that idea of like, because that, I've thought that with our kids, I'm like, they're not, I remember this, but then there was something I had seen that was like, their childhood is also your childhood for them and it's the only one they're gonna get. So the memories you make of it, obviously that could take like a selfish turn, but the memories you have of doing things with them, you're gonna carry. And then those are the stories that our parents tell us, like the funny things we did or said, and even though we can't remember them, we're like hearing the stories to our parents. So
I love that. That makes me feel better about.
Yeah. I'm speaking that in faith right now. I'm assuming on the other side.
We'll come back to this in a couple years and see how that went. Yep. Okay, so we'll get into our topic for the day, which is mom guilt. Yes. Which I always feel like comes with just a natural sigh.
Yes, because it's a close known friend of all moms.
Yes. So if you're listening out there and maybe you're like, what is mom guilt? If you're a mom, I know you already know what it is. But it's a feeling of shame or guilt that some moms experience when they don't meet their own or others' expectations as a parent, right? So I can honestly think of a few examples that I have as far as mom guilt. I think one of the biggest ones that I had with my firstborn is that when he was really little, I tried so hard to just exclusively breastfeed him. But when I tell you that this boy was hungry, he was hungry. Like, I would feed him, and then seriously right after he would just start crying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel like a cow.
Right. Yeah.
At all times.
Yep.
So we went to the pediatrician, and they just told us like we needed to supplement with formula. And I don't know why, but like that mom guilt just instantly set in, because I was like, wow, I can't feed my child in the way that I want to. And I'm having to now rely on formula, which looking back on it is totally fine. He's normal. He's thriving right now. Right. He is well on track for his weight, you know? But at the time I was just like, I just really struggled with it. And I was just feeling like I was failing him as a mom, as a parent, because I'm like, I see all these other moms exclusively breastfeed. Like, why can't I do it? And he was my firstborn. So I feel like that was also always a learning curve.
Expectation that you have.
So there was a lot to learn there and whatnot. But
I think that like with that specific thing too, both sides, like formula or breastfeed, like depending on who you talk to and what your algorithm on social media thinks you're all about, like you're gonna see shame on either side of it. And I never even questioned what I was fed. I assumed I was fed breast milk, but when we were young, it was a shame to breastfeed. It was like, why would you do that? Formula is this scientifically perfect thing. And it was like, really, it's funny because breastfeeding when we were younger was a little bit associated with like not having a lot of money. Nowadays breastfeeding is associated with affluent people, you know, like it's basically only if you have the luxury to pump and have the flexibility to do this, and you can afford a consultant and all those things, can you breastfeed? So now it's like flipped. And it's just funny because it's all just a few companies trying to make mega money, right? And so they publish the research about why this is good, and the same companies that were telling you to buy formula are now in the breast pump business. So now they are telling you, oh, now our research says this. And so either way, I remember talking to a mom who has had like, she has a kid my age, but also a kid that just graduated high school. And she was saying how back in the day that her first child was born, she had to basically beg the hospital to let her breastfeed, because back then, whereas when you deliver in a hospital, the assumption is you're gonna breastfeed, you're gonna skin this, whatever. Back then it was like, you're gonna breastfeed, like almost like gross. And these are nurses and doctors, that probably still work, and so she had to fight for her right to breastfeed her child, versus now that's hilarious to think about, because in the hospital you would kind of have to compete, like repeatedly say, no, I'm not breastfeeding, I want to do formula. No, I'm not. But you'd have to remind everyone. And, most of my experience at hospitals has been fine and not judgmental, but there's the underlying, like, oh, okay, you're not doing it. It's normal. And what's normal is so relative.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy how the conversation has really shifted.
And no matter what, it's just, it's just makes moms feel bad. Like, it's shifted either way. And like, you just cannot find, and even if you are off social media and you're just talking to a family member, like we as moms, hopefully we won't be this way in 20 years when our kids have kids, but like it's a little bit hard to not encourage exactly what you did on the younger generation. So even then moms too, who did formula feed and their kids want to breastfeed, it's like, why? And you're like, I don't know. That's what they told me I should do, and you're like, who am I trying to make happy? And no one's happy. Right.
It's so up to you and your family and like what works for you guys. But that was just a lot of like, I think shame and guilt that I had just kind of put on myself. But like I said, that's one of many experiences. But what about you?
Oh, wow. I mean, I I truly don't need any external pressures to feel mom guilt. It's all from within. But I think like probably just the first thing right off the bat was when I had Elisha. The delivery was super tough and a lot of things went wrong, medical intervention. And so I was not at all like and then it's all worth it because you look at them and whatever. Like I was tired. I was like legit injured. Like, and like I was on an epidural for 24 hours after because they were like, you're not going to be in so much pain. We're going to keep you on, which you're really not supposed to do. But I was like, thank God, you know, let me be paralyzed down there for now because I don't want, but yeah, I mean, for a long time, the connection of like, I'm a mother, you know, and what they talk about was not there at all. Like when we got home from the hospital, I think it was the second night, like my thought was like, why do people have children? Why do they do it? And then why do they do it twice? I could not fathom that after this experience, you would have one again. Right. And I was like, I need a knapsack, like a bandana and a stick. And I'm going to pack up my life and go start a new life. And good luck, Gio, with the children. You know, like I couldn't even. So the motherhood thing hit me so hard. I felt like I was so unprepared. And so that probably was the beginning of it where I was like, what is the issue here? Because the whole magic moment of becoming a mom that's supposed to happen right after your child appears on earth was very absent for a long time. Right. And so, and I don't know, like things like I was like, put me back to work. I need to be around some adults. I've been trapped under this kid all day, you know, like laying on me sleeping. And so I think that probably was my first and probably most intense because, again, first child, here's the expectation. Here's what no one tells you that I wish they would have told me, you know, and all these things that I'm just like, oh, my whole framework is shattered and there's no going back. You know, like that was one of my first thoughts too. And we were having tough nights after the hospital. I was like, this isn't like, I can't drop out of this. You know, you can drop out of school. You can quit your job. You can get a divorce. Like you can theoretically take back everything, but I'm like, this is a human life and we're in it now and for the rest of my life I'm in it. So I think that just like the overwhelming joy right at the beginning and everything's so natural to me, like it was not. So I think I felt very honestly, it was a friend of mine who texted me probably like 2 weeks after Elisha was born. She had just had a kid like a month prior. And she like, oh my gosh, I feel like she saved me. Like she was like, how's it going? And I was like, it's okay. You know, I was kind of didn't want to say all that. I was like, it's okay. We're learning. Great. God is good. And then she kind of was like, okay, so you know, it gets better. And she kind of like was vulnerable with me about, you know, I'm 3 months into this and it is getting better. And so then I was like, you know, and I was like, it's terrible. Everything was horrible. I thought I was going to die. Like all this stuff. And her being vulnerable with me and being like, same girl. I was like, oh. And I think if she hadn't reached out to me, it would have been a dark time for a while. So,
I mean, you went through a traumatic experience with Elisha as well. So,
but they just don't talk. No one had told me. Which then talking to all the moms, it's funny. They're like, oh yeah, I did. Yeah, that did happen to me. Oh yeah, blah, blah. And I'm like, y'all forgot? You know, which it's funny because now I have also kind of forgotten, but I'm like, there's no way you'll ever forget how traumatic this was. And they're like, I guess you just do. And so I was very mad about that answer for a while.
I think that's one of the reasons why, excuse me, that I really wanted to start this podcast as well, is because you have a child and then you're like, wait, no one talked about how this is going to feel or what I'm supposed to do or I don't know, XYZ. Right. So, I just want us to be able to bring those like conversations that we have. And I love that you had a friend that texted you who was already kind of in the thick of it. I feel like now that I'm a mom, whenever I see one of my friends have their first and I'm like, hey, like, how are you? Are you good? Like, I want you to know that it's not always going to be like this. Like, you need that like affirmation, right? Because I feel like you can start experiencing mom guilt right from the start.
Because it's even when, so I had this whole idea of like, I was mad that every mom before me hadn't told me what to expect. But then once my friends started having kids and people around us started having kids, the excitement of the pregnancy, making the registry, doing the baby shower, all this stuff. What will they have? Their nursery and that they'll never sleep in. Like all those things. Then I'm there being like, well, I'm not going to walking here like, well, let me tell you something about having kids. It's not that easy, you know? And so then I realized, I was like, oh yeah, I wish there was more of a balance of, let me give you some realistic expectations. Yeah. But without completely ruining the immense joy of this moment. And I think that a lot of times, you know, we're definitely going to err on the side of let me not ruin the moment. Yeah. But then there is the aspect of like, okay, so I wish I would have been a little bit prepared. Yeah. You know, for any of this. I was like, I didn't know kids didn't sleep. You know, like I was like, I sleep like a baby. Isn't that a saying? You know? And it was things like that where I didn't know, but there's so much out there about pregnancy. Yeah. And the joy of expecting a child. For sure. And then a lot of it drops off once that baby's born. Yeah. So since this is something that basically every mom is going to go through at one point or another, I really want to focus on what are ways that we can overcome mom guilt, right? So I feel like one of the first ways that we kind of already talked about is just acknowledging it, like normalize it, talk about it more. Sure, we're going to err more on the side of, I don't want to ruin this special, precious moment for you, but also like, I just want to be raw and authentic with you about where you might be feeling like you're lacking or you are going to have moments where you're going to feel like, was this the right decision to have kids? Right. And like, those are all normal thoughts, but I feel like we put that shame and guilt on ourselves when we're like, but I shouldn't be feeling like this. Like I should be so in love with my child. I should be so swept up in this moment. Yeah. And sometimes we are, but then sometimes it's also this lack of sleep getting to us. Yeah. Yeah. I think like just the feeling of guilt doesn't mean that you're actually doing something wrong. Right. And I think that especially as women, you know, this is like a women's rights podcast, but I could talk for hours about that. But like we are just truly raised to, as women, to constantly think something I'm doing is probably wrong. It's probably offending someone. It's probably hurting someone's feelings. We're very much raised to, you know, respect the social ecosystem around us and never harm it and never, you know, versus boys just aren't raised like that. Boys are like, conquer stuff and make people listen to you. And so I think, that follows us into motherhood hard. Yeah. And I just think, you know, I think that our feeling then is, if I feel guilty about this, it's probably because I'm actually wrong. And it's impossible for that to always be true, right? Sometimes you can feel guilty. I yelled at my kid. I shouldn't have done that. I feel guilty. I should say sorry. That. But I do think the presence of it makes us feel like, well, then I am wrong. And then the second thing is like, I don't want to tell anyone. Yeah. I just want to fix it. Right. Even though there's no answer to most of it. And that's when we don't open up. So I think it's great to talk about it. Yeah, for sure. So, you know, we can normalize it, acknowledge it. I feel like another thing that we can do is just be mindful of it. So like controlling our thoughts when it happens, because we could just really let that kind of run down a rabbit hole of just, well, I could have done this, or I could have done that, or I should be feeling like this, I should be feeling like that. And it can be a very scary place, and it can lead to things like postpartum depression. It can lead to suicidal thoughts. Like there are just so many things that we could allow it to lead to. So I feel like if we are just more aware of the fact that it's going to happen. Yes. And then also aware of like, but how can I combat that? What can I remind myself in those moments when I'm, you know, maybe thinking about going down that rabbit hole? Yeah. I think that is very important to understand. We can control the thoughts. So we had just done a panel recently at our Christian high school, and one of the deans of the high school was on it with the rest of the youth pastors, and she said, you know, she's always been taught basically that our mind is like an airport, and so there's thoughts coming in and out all day, but like you have the control to decide what lands. That's true. You know, like an airport can actually refuse a plane landing for some kind of reason. Yeah. And so that's our thoughts. Like you can't control every thought that pops into your mind. In, you know, we all have like crazy intrusive thoughts, you know, like, what if I just do that, you know, and you're just like, well, I'm scared of myself. But it's our choice to let a thought land, take root, whatever. And so I think that acknowledging the thoughts especially helps, like saying things out loud, be like, am I crazy? Or blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Usually you find out you're not crazy. Right. So then you're like, oh, well, let me just throw that thought away, you know? And I think that of all the voices that are so loud now in the world, we just, as moms, have to be like, what voices do I need to just take out?
Yes.
You know, especially it's a very, obviously social media, huge thing, huge just market for selling products to moms via mom guilt. But I think that the most important one, obviously, is just the voice of God and being like, okay, what's my assignment, God? You know, like, am I doing that? Because I think with so many mom things, like, God doesn't actually care, right? He doesn't care. You could be a working mom, right? You can be a stay-at-home mom. You could be a formula-fed mom, a breastfed mom. You can be all the kinds of moms. You can be the bougie mom with all the gear. You can be the crunchy mom with nothing. Like, God doesn't care about that at all. Yeah. But, like, he cares about you are his daughter. He cares about, are you getting your assignments from me every day? Like, because I think, too, we can get off path of God's assignment for us concerning our kids and just us in our life. Yeah. And we can be like trying to fulfill everyone else's assignments for us. And then even if we perfectly did that, we'd still feel empty because we'd be like, wait, who is that? Oh, God. Oh, I forgot about him. Yeah. You know, when we're trying to please everyone else, we can actually be really, that's when we would displease God. Right. But we think it's, no, I'm not doing enough. I'm not good enough. So God's mad at me. And God's like, no, you just haven't really asked me my opinion on any of that. So I think how I feel that I can silence a lot of the voices is by like just really holding on to his. Yep. And I'm like, okay, if that opinion doesn't really match his thing, then I'm not going to let that one land. Yeah. You know? For sure. Yeah. I feel like something else that we can do is to really just give ourselves grace. Yeah. Like, it's hard. It is hard. Yeah. It's hard even understanding that concept of God giving us grace. Oh, yeah. But we also need to give ourselves grace, especially if this is like our first time being a mom. We do have all those expectations just kind of placed on us, or maybe it's internal, maybe it is external expectation that we have for raising a human. But we have to remember that like we're all in this together and we're just trying our best like day to day. So give yourself grace. A verse that comes to mind is 2 Corinthians 12:9, which says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest on me." Yeah. And I feel like it's just a matter of reminding ourselves, right? So controlling our thoughts, but also reminding ourselves that, you know, mom guilt can be a weakness. Yeah. So as long as we just really acknowledge that, that weakness can not only develop Christian character, but it'll also deepen our worship with Christ as well, right? Because when we do that, we're affirming God's strength in that. Like, God, I can't do this by myself. Oh, there's no way, right? Yeah, like, zero chance. There's no way that we could do this by ourselves. So it's all because of God's grace through us in our weakness. And it's just, I don't know, thinking about that, just like when you have a child, it really just affirms the love of the Father. Oh, yeah. Right? Like, and parents say it all the time. Understand it in just a ridiculously different way than that. Yeah. So I think, I don't know, just coming to those realizations is also just reminding ourselves that there is grace there. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, yes, the whole understanding the concept of God's love. Yeah. But I remember, I think it was like last year that I was really going through this understanding of like, oh, God loves me the way I love my kids, which I know he loves me more. Yeah. But it's like impossible for me to like imagine that love exists more than what I feel for my kids. Yes. So I'm like, let me just get there. So last year, a lot of times I was like, God, like convince me that you just love me as much as I love my kids. Right. Because I don't think more exists. You know, obviously it does, but it's unfathomable. So like, if you know, because you think about your kids, like it's not that they can't do no, but it's like, I would never, like there's nothing you could ever do to make me even love you like an ounce less. And that's from like an imperfect standpoint, right? Like imperfect mother, father, whatever. And so to think like God is that, but more immediately, then you're like, okay, I'm okay. Yeah. You know, like your kids could be rich one day. They could be broke. They could be successful, they can be unsuccessful, and it just wouldn't change anything about your love for them. Yeah. So to think that that applies from God to us, regardless of how good we do at parenting on this day, you know, is just, it's like freeing, but it's also like, okay, so I have to give up the idea that I could measure up somehow via my actions. Right. You know, like it's freeing, but also only if you let it be freeing. Yeah. Because then it leaves you as helpless as a child before the Father, being like, okay, so the only way I can do it is with your help. Yeah. And I think, you know, as humans, sometimes we're just like, I don't want your help. I want to just be strong enough to do it myself. Yeah. So it's simple, but it's extremely difficult. Yeah. Especially just depending on the day you have. Yeah. Every single day is different when you are raising children. Yeah. Even when you said the first time mom thing, absolutely. But we have to have grace for ourselves. This is the first time you are a mom of 2. Yeah. This is the first time I'm a mom of 3. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Are we going to have a 4th? Like, I'm just like, I can't even imagine the first time being a mom of 4 if that was to happen, because every single time I'm like, it multiplies. Yeah. It doesn't add, right? Like 1 kid, 2 kid, like 2 kids is like 4 and 3 is like 17, I think. So I'm like, just because I've kind of figured out a little how to raise Elisha. Yeah. Then came Shiloh, which, you know, no fault of his own. Our thing, our decision. But that having 1 did not really prepare me for having 2. Yeah. Because the dynamic changes. Yeah. So, yes, I mean, grace from God, absolutely. And admitting that you need it. Yes. And being like, honestly, I don't know if I'm doing the best. Yeah. But I'm doing it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So, may God's grace cover what I'm missing. Right. But, listening to anyone else and even the negative voice inside yourself, I do know, because I've learned from so many other moms, that like that's not the way to do it. Because 20 years from now, that's what'll be the regret, is I can't believe I did this because this person. Yeah. Can't believe I didn't do this because of this person's advice. Versus I don't know. I love my mom. Like we have great moms. Yeah. You know, absolutely. And I know that at least my mom would probably have 100 different things to be like, sorry I did this, sorry I did this, sorry I did this, and I'd be like, shh, first of all, can you watch my kids today? And second of all, like, you are perfect, you know, to me. Yes. And some of that stuff I also didn't realize till I got older. And I think as we're ready to have kids that are about to be verbal, and some of mine are very, you know, you do have to hold out the hope of too, like, I'm going to do the best I can with what God's given me. Yeah. And I hope one day my kids will realize that, even if in the moment and in most of their young years, even if they think I'm not doing, because kids are a source of mom guilt too. Yeah. Like they are crazy. Yeah. They are the rawest form of humanity. Oh yeah. Selfish, greedy, you know, like unrefined. Right. So for a lot of it, you have to also just be like, okay, hopefully though, one day, you know, they'll just at least understand I didn't mean this, and I meant the best, and I had the best motives. So, and I truly think that they will. Yeah. As long as us as moms, like, we're remaining in God's word and holding on to his truth. And like, the more that we are making sure that this relationship is good, then our relationship with our kids will be fantastic. Yeah. Even if it's not in the moment, or even if we're having a bad day. I think it's just, again, reminding ourselves of, this is okay. Right. This is normal. Yep. I'm not going to soak in it though. Right. I'm going to allow this thought to kind of come in and out, and we're just going to move past this, because it's a lot of what you said about your mom too. Like, when I think about my mom, I'm like, oh, I love her. That's fine if she made a mistake. Like, she's human. Yeah. And even now, like, when she watches the boys, she's like, oh, I'm sorry that I didn't do this for you. And I'm like, literally, it's fine. Like I love you. Right. Just keep watching my kids. Yes. Amen. Keep watching our kids, please. But I just, I think that with mom guilt, it is funny, because like the worst thing I think you could be, and again, I don't mean this in a shamey kind of way, but I do think the worst thing you could be is a miserable mom. Like, you can be a fit mom and a rich mom and a baller and a chef and a this, and provide all for your kids, but like, if you are just miserable, they remember that. That's what they remember. They remember, my mom never wanted to play. My mom yelled at me a lot. You know, like, but if the house is dirty sometimes, and if they eat chicken nuggets for most of their meals, they're not going to hold that against you. You know? Yeah. And so it's almost like feeding into the guilt really will make you the miserable mom that they don't want, versus doing things and having confidence and apologizing for your mistakes. That's going to set you up for a great, life with them. And
it's the love that they remember.
Yeah. And you can't love when you feel like you are the worst human alive. You cannot love other people.
Right.
And so, I think it's funny because as Christians who've been Christians for a long time, we know that. Yeah. And in youth ministry, we tell kids that constantly, whatever. And I don't know why it's hard then to remember it once we have kids ourselves. Yeah. It's like, it applies to everywhere else in my life. Yeah. With children, perfection or nothing. Right.
Their meals have to be perfect every single time.
Yeah, like
the house
this many
has to
vegetables,
be
this many whatever. Yep. Yeah. And I'm like, we ate...
Right.
I mean, I was telling you, Twizzlers and Coke, like just constantly. That was a staple. Yeah. And it's fine. It turned out fine.
Yeah. You're fine now.
Yeah,
so.
I'm fine. I still love Twizzlers and Coke. I don't eat as much, but yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you again so much for being on the podcast. I feel like this conversation is so needed in today's world. May it help. Especially because there's just so much like to be said about mom guilt on social media too. So like we need to be talking about it more as Christians as well. And especially trying to raise our boys in the light of Christ, right? So
yes, it's rough out there for boys right now. There's a lot coming after them.
Yes. So. Yes, it is. Any final like thoughts or any comments that you want to share with our listeners?
No, I just think Galatians 2:20 is one of my favorite verses ever. And it's just that, the life I live, I now live through Christ. Yeah. It's no longer I who lives, but Christ who lives in me. Yeah. And so I just write that in the inner part of my brain all the time. And I think as a mom, it helped me so much. I'm like, I can't do it. Yeah. That's the big question. Can I do it? It's like big fat no. Yeah. You can't. I can't at all. Can Christ in me do it? Absolutely.
For sure.
So that constant thing of not trying to prove to yourself you are good enough, but being like, I am absolutely not. Right. In no way am I good enough. That's why I don't know how people do it apart from Jesus. Yeah. But I rest in that. I'm like, am I good enough? No. Am I good? No. Am I nice? No. Am I the best? No. Is Jesus? Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so then I'm going to die and I'm going to let his life live through me.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much. I really appreciate it.
I love it.
And thank you guys for listening in.
See you later.
Thanks for joining me today on the Mamas Planted podcast. I hope you found a little inspiration to help you grow in your motherhood journey. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend and help us spread the word. And don't forget to follow us on social media for encouragement and updates. You can find us on Instagram at Mamas Planted. Until next time, keep planting those seeds of faith and watch them grow.